Today, we are going to be talking about the different types of conscience, which is different from consciousness, okay? Consciousness is the synonym of awareness, of knowing, of being aware of something. Conscious is something different. The conscious is the moral part of us. You probably have heard people saying, I have a clean conscience, or, you know, or I have, or you have, they have a guilty conscience, okay? It's because conscience is the sum total of our conscious and unconscious beliefs about what is right and what is wrong. It constitutes the sum of our moral judgment. It is our morality, so to speak. So the conscious acts as a barometer that keeps us, let's say, on the right track, on the right path. In other words, it allows us to know when we are doing something that is aligned with what we believe to be good, to be right, to be righteous, and to know, to feel at a bodily, sensational, emotional level when we do something that takes us off track, when we do something that it's not in line with our morality, with what we believe to be right and to be wrong. But it becomes very, very complex to know and to feel what is truly right or wrong for us. Why? Because three major types of conscience exist. We have one conscience, which is the personal conscience, which is, as like the word saying, it's personal. It's about what we believe to be right and wrong as an individual, right? And this conscience is based on three factors. The first factor determining our conscience is the need, the desire to belong. In other words, we decide very early in our life what is right and what is wrong according to the system, and normally it's the family system, where we grew up. In other words, if I know that in my house, let's say a silly example is, in my house it's wrong to be inside the house without shoes, I will feel that I have a bad conscience if I wear shoes in my house, because the rule of that system of the house where I live is that I have to walk in the house without shoes. So if I wear the shoes inside the house, instinctively I will feel guilty, okay? Because I am not adhering to a rule that I interiorized. And I am most likely, then I am more likely to interiorize this rule, and it will become part of my personal conscience, although it is being acquired from the other type of conscience, which is the one of the system, the systemic conscience, okay? So, in other words, our personal conscience is normally very dependent from the group conscience, the systemic conscience. And the systemic conscience is the conscience of a system. The most immediate systemic conscience that we are all exposed to is our family conscience. And our family conscience is basically the sum total of all the rights and all the wrong that our family believes is right and wrong. So we grew up learning and interiorizing what is right and wrong for us, according to what was right and wrong in our family. And we'll go back to talk about the personal and the systemic consciousness. But I want to also tell you straight away what is the third kind of conscience. The third kind of conscience is we could call it universal conscience, or spiritual conscience, or spirit, soul conscience. And it is based on literally natural, instinctive rules. It is not based on anything arbitrary. And I'll explain you later what I mean by arbitrary. The universal spiritual soul conscience is based on, basically in just, it let us know, it informs us what is pro-life from the highest good of everyone involved, and is against life. I'll give you an example. Ciao Francesca, hello. I'll give you an example. Most likely, unless somebody is truly mentally damaged or emotionally damaged, if he or she hurts unexpectedly an animal or a living being, let's say is driving a car and an animal gets hit by his or her car, that individual, regardless to where he's from and the cultural influence that he was exposed to, or the family that he was brought up in, will probably feel a sense of unease, a sense of guilt, because inherently, instinctively, he or she knows that that wasn't a good thing, okay, that it harmed someone, right? And this is the very basic universal conscience, the spiritual conscience. Now, the systemic conscience and the personal conscience are arbitrary, meaning they are formed and based on arbitrary rules. In fact, we see that all the time. In one family, to be orderly and precise could be seen as being a very, very positive element, could be judged as being good, better than being creative and being spontaneous. In another family, to be spontaneous and creative and maybe even messy, it's considered better than being orderly and where everything has to be clean and in their place. Can you see the difference? So if I come from a family, if I was brought up in a family where being orderly, being precise, is considered to be very good, when I am being spontaneous and creative and maybe a little bit messy, I would instantly feel a little bit uneasy. I would feel guilty because I am betraying that generic rule. Can you see what I mean? At the same time, if I am brought up in a family where spontaneity and creativity and maybe be messy is considered really good, unless I am behaving like that, let's say I am actually temperamentally, I'm very orderly and very organized and I'm not very creative and spontaneous, I can see that I feel almost guilty because I am not expressing the qualities that my family system would like me to express. You see? And this feeling guilty or at ease is in relationship with the expectations of the system where I belong to. In this case, it's the family system. By the way, if you want to share anything, please go ahead. I very much like to interact with you instead of just talking. So please, if you want to share something, go ahead. I would read your comments. And if you have questions as well, please ask them so we can communicate and can become a true live and not just me making a monologue for the whole hours. But until and unless you write something, I'll keep talking and explaining what I mean. Okay, yes, but something else that it's important for us to consider is that there are many kind of conscience. The three basic ones, like I say, is the personal one, meaning the one that I personally have created by growing up. I think, okay, which could be totally unconscious. And in that case, normally my personal conscience would be a copy, let's say, of the family conscience, meaning I would believe that what my family believes is right and wrong, I believe is right and wrong. And whenever I do something that is considered to be, for my family to be wrong, I would feel guilty. But when I grow up, if I work on myself, I can then decide that actually, me, Luca, personally, I see some things different from how my family see and regard the same things. So, let's say, for example, my family believes that to be successful in life, we have to work for the government. And because everybody's always worked for the government. So, inherently, instinctively, but it is an acquired instinct, it's not a natural instinct, I know that if I choose to work for the government, I have a clean conscience. Okay, and I am liked by my family system. I am doing something that they would like me to do. I am fulfilling their expectations. So the energy in me, which is the energy of the innocent child, feels safe and feels loved and feels that he's on the right track if I work for the government. But let's say for whatever reason that it's not something that I like doing, okay? If I choose to not work for the government, to take another career, I can feel at a very, very deep level that I am betraying the expectations of my family system. And that creates guilt and creates fears. Why? Because I need to belong. The first need that we all have is to belong. And this is a very archaic need for two reasons. One reason is because when we are little kids, when we were children, we needed to be supported, to be fed, we needed to be protected, and we needed also love. We needed emotional support. We needed physical support and emotional support. So we knew very, very instinctively that we couldn't really afford to not to adhere, so to say, not to fulfill our parents' expectation. We could rebel, but just to a certain extent, because we knew that to really rebel against our parents would be not surviving. So we learn how to comply. That is one of the reasons. The other reason is because although in the last 100 years, humankind has made lots and lots of advancement in every field, technologically, even emotionally and spiritually. So life is very different from 100 years ago. Even though all this is happening, our brain has not developed as much. So we still are very much conditioned by what is called our reptilian brain, which is our basic instinctive brain, which is based on all the memories since humankind originated. So the reptilian brain still acts on the principle of fight or flight, and is very much fearful of the environment, because the memory is still that if I don't belong, meaning if I'm not part of a group, if I am expelled from the group, I have to hunt for food on my own, and I have to defend myself, maybe from wild beasts. But this is not the case anymore. In other words, once upon a time, if I was not fulfilling the expectations of the group where I was, if I was going against some ideas that the group was believing in, if that would have meant, but even today, if we don't do what other wants us to do, or in a group, if we don't believe what the group believes, we risk what? We risk to be expelled, to be sent away. So, until, let's say, even just 100 years ago, to be expelled, to be left alone, would have meant maybe not surviving. So that's why we feel guilty and we feel a lot of fear, so we would do anything to belong. Nowadays, it's different. Nowadays, if we are adults, we don't have to worry, unless we are still living with our parents and depending on them, of course, that's another story. But normally, if we are adults and economically independent, we don't need to be accepted by our parents to survive. And also nowadays, unless we live in some kind of, wild place, I don't know, in Africa or somewhere else in the world, we don't have to worry about going out and hunting for food or defending ourselves from wild beasts. So nowadays we could well afford to tell somebody, you know what? My ideas are different from yours. I hear you, I love you, I respect you, although I am different from you. And nothing really would happen. As a matter of fact, what would happen is that we would become our own parents. We would become our own authorities. And this is what family constellations allow us to do. Family constellations gives us the tool and the opportunity to experience what it means to truly love someone unconditionally. In other words, to connect to the love that we feel, let's say, for mother, for father, accept them as they are, and at the same time, being able to honor and accept and express to ourselves and to them that although we love them, we see things different from them. We are not them. We like different things. And that doesn't mean that we don't love them. We still love them. We're just different individuals. And that is truly, basically, fundamentally, the base of evolution, of being able to be with somebody different and love them as they are. This is what family constellations allow us to do. To love reality without expecting reality or people to be different from how they are. But coming back to conscience, it is actually conscience what doesn't allow us most of the time, or what doesn't make it easy for us to truly fulfill ourselves, to be authentically who we'd like to do. Because again, like we said before, conscience is the set of spoken and unspoken rules that at an energetic level inform us if we are doing something that keeps us belonging to that group or to that relationship or not. And we feel that very, very very instinctively. It's something that we don't even need to talk about it. You know, think when you go into someone's house, from what you see, let's say you see that everything is in order, everything is in place, everything is clean, and you know that in that house, if you weren't adhering, so to speak, to that kind of behavior, you wouldn't be liked that much, would you? And at the same time, if you were maybe in a house where everything is not so, you know, orderly, maybe everything is like quite messy and chaotic and whatever, you know that maybe if you were acting really precise and really orderly and you could actually be judged because you are behaving in a different way, you see? And this is what actually happens. This is what actually drives people to get angry with each other. This is actually what drives people to actually kill each other. Conscience, believing in something that something else doesn't believe in. You know, the crusade, the spiritual war, the war in the name of God, they were all justified by believing, which means having a clear conscience, even maybe when you're killing people, by believing that God said that we are the righteous people because we believe something that other people don't believe in, and everybody else that doesn't believe what we believe in, we feel justified in maybe even killing them, exterminating them. You see, we can kill, fooling ourselves that we are doing right, we are in the right, because our conscience is clear, because the group, the religious group we belong to tells us that is what is right for us to do. You see, and that means, which it brings me to talk about, and this is the question that I offer you, what is right and what is wrong? You see, ultimately, there isn't really a right and a wrong, not an absolute, because what is right for a group of people could be wrong for somebody else. Another example of this is the fact that in Japan, to burp during a meal means I am appreciating the food. It's an act of gratitude. Well, it's not in the West, is it? In the Western countries that I know of, if you burp in a restaurant during dinner, you know, it's not considered to be a really good thing. It's not considered to be a positive, pleasant thing. You know, you would be judged negatively because of that. But even in the same country, if you see that every time, fashion function on the same principle. In other words, today mini skirt could be very fashionable, so they're good, they're right. In 6 months' time, mini skirt, they could be out. So you're not considered to be cool, to be good, to be right if you wear a mini skirt. Why? Simply because somebody arbitrarily chose that thing is not cool anymore, it's not right, it's not good, and that something else is good, and that today is bad. You see, this is how our mental mind works. The mind creates stories, creates right, wrong, good, bad, and that creates the conscious, that creates the personal conscious and the systemic conscious. The only conscience that it's not mentally created is the spiritual conscience. It's the one that we were all born with, which is the one that informs us. Of course, again, this has to be pointed out. If I am somebody quite balanced and quite stable, and I'm not actually mentally impaired, so if I can actually feel when I know what it means to feel good and what it means to feel bad, I would feel. Nobody has to tell me that I am actually harming myself or somebody or a living thing. I would know inherently that that's not something that gives me pleasure, that makes me feel good. And I would know instinctively that being open, that being loving and kind towards myself and or towards somebody else or a living thing or a plant makes me feel good. You see, this is what the universal conscience informs us. If we are doing something which is pro-life, which is for life, or if we are doing something which is against life. And it doesn't take into consideration all of the other mind-creating rules that mankind has created, meaning it's not polite to lick the plate when you are at dinner, or you should be wearing this, you shouldn't be wearing that, you should be doing this kind of job, you shouldn't be doing that, you should be liking this, you should be liking that. The universal conscience is not concerned about any of this. But because we are not always and only connected to the universal conscience, we are very much conditioned by our systemic conscience and our personal conscience. And it gets very complicated and very complex. Why? Because every time we interact with one person, with somebody else, we are one system with that person, and that relationship has got some kind of spoken or unspoken rules between that relationship and that person. And with another person, then it's another relationship, so another system with different rules. And let's consider, for example, the child that was brought up in a family where mom considered and to be good to be vegetarian. Okay? She valued very much to be vegetarian because she's a vegetarian, and she really judged people that eat meat. Dad, father, is the opposite. He loves meat. He loves steak. And he actually judges negatively vegetarians. Okay. That child that was brought up in that family with those parents instinctively would feel guilty if he or she is eating a steak and is only with mom. Because mom doesn't like people that eat meat, would prefer them not to eat them. So it would feel uneasy towards mom. Towards dad, it would be the opposite. If he or she is with dad and he eats a steak, he or she would feel good. Can you see that? It's the same person, but it would feel good or bad regarding to who is with. So imagine that poor child that is sitting at the table with mom and with dad. And that poor child would have to make a very, very difficult decision to either go vegetarian 100% or not being vegetarian and eating meat. Because he or she would know that couldn't be liked, and for a child to be liked also means to be loved very often. So in that child there would be a very, very alive and difficult conflict to be living with. It would never be at ease if either decides to eat meat or not eating meat. I gave you with this example, but I could give you millions of other examples. How we are in the same family most of the time, given different kind of information about what is right and what is wrong. So the person that grows up and that doesn't work on himself and doesn't really sit and reflect on, okay, what is it that and that's when we truly create our own personal individual conscience. What is it that I feel, think, regard as being true for me? Do I actually like eating meat or not? You see, it would be difficult. It would be difficult even when I want to go into myself and really know what is good for me. Being raised in a family where I love mom and I love dad, and and I have to make a decision that would affect the way they see me. You see, and some people don't actually take the time and don't invest the energy in asking themselves this question: what is it that I like? And these people would live with this inner conflict, energetic conflict inside, and what could happen is that they just become people pleaser. If they would be really good, probably at detecting very quickly what somebody expects from them, and they would put a mask on. They would go, oh, with this person, I would just say yes, and they would go alone and do what he or she says would like me to do, or what I know that they would like me to do, because I have their attention, I have their love. And with somebody else, I would do the same. But ultimately, I wouldn't know what I truly want. I wouldn't really know what is it that I feel, what is good or not for me. And many people nowadays still, and I'm talking about even adults, they still don't truly know what they authentically want. Because for them it's too challenging, too painful to face the guilt of telling themselves, and figuratively to mom and or dad, do you know what? I don't like what you like. Do you know what? I am not doing what you want me to do. I am different. I am going to honor what I want to do. You see? Happiness and true success has got one big price to be paid. And it is to be able to face the guilt that we have to face and elaborate when we honor what we truly want to do, which is not in accordance to what our family system wants us to do. It's not easy. It's not easy. Most of the people, even during their adult years, they would much rather prefer to be innocent than to be happy. Many people still prefer to suffer but be innocent. Why? Because maybe suffering, meaning doing what mom and or dad expect them to do to the expenses of doing what they would like to do, keeps them dear to them. You see, they know that they are near mom or dad. That mom or dad love them. You see, but they suffer. Many people live all their life like that. Many people, if they could truly do what they would have wanted to do, they tell you, they say, I lived my life that it wasn't mine. I lived the life that I wanted because my mom, my dad, my family, whoever else, my spouse, my boyfriend, my girlfriend wanted me to do that. But that's not really what I wanted to do. You see, and that is out of love. But it is out of blind love. It's out of immature love. It's love for a pact that we have made. And it's the pact of being like you. It's the child that wants to be just like mom, just like dad, just like who he or she is with at the expenses of what really feels, you see? But if we truly want to be happy, if we truly want to be independent and authentic, we have to realize that we cannot be everybody's best friend. We can love everybody unconditionally, yes, we can take everybody else into our heart, but we can do that and truly do that when we first honor, recognize, and do what we authentically love doing. Then we will be shining bright. Then we will be vibrating at a higher end vibration. Because, why? Because we are independent, because we know that our life, the way our life goes, is in our hands. It's because I am fulfilling, as an adult, what makes me feel happy and good and satisfied. I am the source of what I need for myself. I don't need somebody else's appreciation and validation to feel good. Because when my sense of worth is dependent on what somebody else is thinking of me or wants from me, means putting their wishes, their desires on the forefront. And unless those desires and wishes are exactly the one that I authentically would go for, I am not living the life that I would want to live. I would be living the life of a puppet or a child in the body of an adult, just to eleemosynate love and recognition and appreciation. And my essence, my soul would be deprived, and I would be more and more disconnected from who I truly am and meaning life itself, because we are one with life itself. And in the long run, that could materialize as an illness, as depression, as anxiety. You see, as a kind of disharmony in my system, or in my body, in my mind, in my emotional system, because it's all interconnected anyway. Why? Because I am not truly loving myself, and I'm not even loving others, because I can only love others when I love myself first. You see, blind love is the love that puts others first, the needs of others first, and then himself, herself. But adult, mature, healthy love, we talked about this in the previous live. Mature, healthy love knows that I must fulfill my own needs first. I need to love myself first. And then, when I am full of love, when my container is full, and maybe even overflowing, then I can give my love. Then I can love others. But I don't need to love others before of me. And also because if I am always looking out, trying to help others, I am not really truly believing and loving them and believing that they can make it on their own. And when I do that, normally it's because unconsciously, because that's how I was brought up with, in believing that I have to look at others first before looking at myself. I expect others to do the same. I would expect others to worry about me before they worry at them. So we have one person that isn't good enough, that wants to help somebody else that isn't good enough, and it's everybody is not stable, and everybody is leaning on somebody else, but nothing is really stable. And many people live like that, you see. And many people that they truly believe that that's the way of living a rightful life, they actually believe that it's selfish to fulfill one's need before helping others, which is not selfish. That's actually true love. That means to know how to love. Know and love yourself, and then once you know and love yourself, you can then truly love somebody else. But then your love would be different, because you know that somebody else, because you were able to love yourself first, you know that others can make it on their own. They don't need you. They don't need me. You see, need gets taken out of the equation. So we would actually truly energetically help somebody. I know that you can make it. You don't need my help. If you truly need my help, I will be there and I'll give it to you. But I will give you what you need and not what you think you need, because I know that you can make it. I know that what you request of me, it's something because you don't think you can do something that you can actually do. But to be able to understand this and express this energetically, I have to have lived it. I have to have been able to grow up, to become my own parent. I have to have been able to develop my own authentic personal conscience, which it could be, well, very different from the family, systemic, cultural, religious, and maybe society conscience that I was brought up with. And when I do that, I most likely will realize that my own personal conscience, it's very much resonating with the universal conscience, the spiritual conscience. Why? Because I will be freer. If we were living our life following, so to speak, or basing our decision on the spiritual conscience, the universal conscience, we would feel so much freedom, so much freedom. Well, watch this space. Easier said than done. Why? Because we live in a society which is made of rules and regulations. And I know, and I respect, I have respect for people that they say, and it's true, my freedom finishes when yours starts. In other words, if we have decided that something, or let's say if I know that, let's say I'm in a place or in a culture, in a society, or with somebody that one of my behavior, let's say to do this on my head, would really offend them and would, makes them feel really upset, and I cannot do it, well, I would refrain from doing it, right? Why should I be doing it and make them angry? But that's different. But there would be my own choice. I would know that in my own world, seen from my conscience, there's nothing wrong with doing this. And somebody else can do this and it wouldn't affect me. You see, I am not enslaved by that rule, but I am making a conscious choice, a conscious decision not to do that. Why? Because I respect the belief that somebody else has and the attachment that that person has toward his or her belief. So I'm not doing this, you see? But I am not conditioned by that rules. It's different. It's very different. Because I could be not being conscious of what I believe to be morally right or wrong, and I could be not doing this when I am with those people because I actually believe that doing this, it's a very bad thing. If I do this, I would feel guilty. Can you see what I mean? So if I do this and I feel guilty or whatever else, it means that I am conditioned by that belief. I am restrained by that. I call them the psychic cages. But if I know that I'm simply not choosing to do something, not because I would feel guilty, I wouldn't feel guilty, but it's just because, I don't do it because I know your reaction, what your reaction would be doing. Can you see the difference? I am free. I am free of doing something or not doing something. And I know the consequences. And I know that in myself, it doesn't make a difference. Somebody could be doing this or not, and it doesn't bother me. Can you see? I am free from the spell. But to be free from the spell entails to be aware of all these dynamics. Entails means to be able to know and experience what it means to be open, accepting, and loving unconditionally, without expecting things to be different, without expecting people to believe something that I believe in or not. It doesn't matter. It's not important. They're all just thoughts, ideas, arbitrary things that we have created, that the mind has created. Family constellations is, that I know of, the most powerful tools that allow us to do this, that allow us to free ourselves from all these cages, to all this need to belong, when we actually do belong because we exist. We exist. That's why we know we belong. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. We don't need anybody's approval to know that we belong. I have a right to belong. Systemically, universally, there's nothing that can be excluded. Exclusion only happens in the mind. Exclusivity doesn't exist in nature. It's a mind-created concept. Nothing gets excluded in nature. We can only exclude from our mind. And in fact, when we work during a constellation, we see that all the time. The energy that gets excluded in a system will influence the system in a negative way until that energy, and the energy of the person, of course, that was excluded, gets recognized, respected, and has given a place into our heart, into our family, into our system. And when that happens, energy shifts. And everything changes. If there's one thing that we are all here for, is to understand and experience who we truly are, which is unconditional love, which means not judging anything and anyone, accepting everything and everyone as it is. That brings us peace. That brings us together. That allows energy to flow, things to shift. And we haven't even moved a finger. We don't need to do anything. This is about attitude. This is an inner experience. But it's a powerful experience. And that's what we are here for. If we are here for something, because I am well at ease with the idea that we are actually not here for anything, that there isn't any meaning at all. As a matter of fact, I don't truly believe that there is a meaning for life. I think that we give the meaning with our mind. All we are here for is experience. And of course, it seems that what do we all universally want to experience? We want to experience harmony. That's what we all strive for. Harmony, happiness, joy, enthusiasm. Look at children. Again, unless it's a particular situation, a child arrives into this world and is full of life, full of joy, full of happiness, full of wonder, right? And it's like that until it gets conditioned by what? By the conscience of the family, by the rules. You should be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. This is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. And then problems start to be created in the mind because concepts are created. But there's nothing to fear. We can live in the same world. We don't need to even be against concepts and ideas and beliefs. All we need to do is to realize that they are ideas, they are opinions. Yes, they're judgments, and maybe they're negative judgments, but they don't belong to us unless we choose that they are ours as well. But we can choose that, hey, they're there, but they don't belong to me. I am fine as I am. And even if we were believing something negative, a negative belief or a negative judgment we could have about ourselves or others or life, we can then anytime, in an instant, choose to let go of the belief. We could realize that, you know what, maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm not like I was thinking, believing of being. Maybe they are not like that. Maybe life is not like that. And everything changes. Seriously, when we choose to let go of our belief, when we just choose to be, I am fine. Actually, sometimes we realize I'm actually feeling better, more at ease, more at peace, without the beliefs. Life will become easier. We would realize that we could really not identify with the systemic conscience we were brought up with. You know why? Because if we were living in another family or in another country, rules would be different anyway. What is right here would be wrong there. There would be similarities, of course, and that similarities would be based on the universal conscience. In other words, if I am somebody healthy, I know that if I am kind, open, loving, accepting, understanding of myself, others, and life itself, and all human beings, I will feel good. I will feel good. Nobody has to tell me that, right? And on the contrary, if I am not respectful, if I'm angry, aggressive with myself, against myself, others, a human being, a living being, or life, I wouldn't feel so good. I wouldn't feel so good. But apart from this, reflect and think if the rules and regulations that you have interiorized growing up, if they really resonate with who you truly are. And you could be surprised. Some of them you would want to keep, and they would be part of your conscience, and some of them you may not want to keep. And you would just bless them, thank them, and lead them to who they belong to. It's as simple as that. Thank you, everyone. You know, this hour flew by. I'm very amazed and surprised. There wasn't much interaction because there weren't many people anyway. But thank you very much. As I say, time flew by. It was wonderful to be with you. I love you very much, and I'm going to see you in 2 weeks' time. Ciao, ciao.